up.
How was practice yesterday?
It was good. Yeah, we were hoping to see Patriots-Titans. Obviously, that got canceled, but it was a nice little scrimmage that we got to see yesterday. Tannehill versus Malik Willis, head-to-head.
So we were told that they literally drafted like all the way down to the trainers. And Terrell Williams against Stretch, as he's affectionately known around here, John Stryker, who literally were like drafting support staff and managers and like trainers. This, Mike Vrabel is all about building these just like intensely competitive environments, literally at a moment's notice. But sounded like it was a pretty spirited practice yesterday.
It was good fun. I will say, so, you go through these training camps. It's fascinating to see the various different support staff and trainers and, people that work in the front office are out here snapping the ball to quarterbacks and stuff. At every, destination you go to, the Titans have by far and away the least accurate training staff when it comes to just pitching footballs to people. They had guys set up, just walking down a line, trying to work on just drop a ball over my shoulder so I can work on catching it. And not one of them was even workable. Like, come on. The man's trying to hone a skill here.
Some extra reps
Sounds
here.
like I'm getting out here.
So it sounds like next we're going to see PFF's grades of all accuracy of training staffs around the league.
Y'all should.
There we go.
I think you should, man. We were Minnesota this weekend, and I'm watching. Had to have been training staff or weight room staff throwing over the shoulders to Justin Jefferson this weekend. I won't lie. Dude was dropping some dimes in there, man. I was like, dude got a talent. And then the other side of that is, too, most elite athletes like a Justin Jefferson or elite quarterback has a quirkiness to him. Just like, why are you good at everything? Yeah. The dude sprints off to the corner. Justin Jefferson grabs the ball and drops a dime in the back of the corner end zone. Just thinking to myself, why do you have to be this good at everything? You know what I'm saying? Like, Ben was that type of guy who's like shooting basketballs into the garbage can. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
And you were an NFL athlete. Think about how the rest of us feel.
Just flawlessly come to you like it's nothing. Like, oh, you bowl too? Oh, and you hoop? Oh, and you play lacrosse? Like, no, you can't be elite at everything and he play baseball. Like, what the heck are we talking about here? I hate those type of dudes.
We clown Ramon for his 40 time being 5.2 slow. While recognizing that 5.2 is still faster than like anyone else in this building could run.
Exactly.
So
we actually ran a 40 at the combine this year.
Did you?
Yeah.
What?
They had the fan thing set up. So I was reasonably encouraged that in cleats and no, without cleats in athletic trainers and jeans, I ran a 5.33.
Okay.
I think that was okay.
Pretty good for a 40-year-old right there.
And did not rip a hamstring off the bone doing it. That was the most important.
Big win.
Did you run it?
I did not, no.
Okay.
I had other work to do that week at the combine, so I did not get to do that.
You see Pac-Man ran a 4.5 still?
Crazy.
Steve was waiting for his pro day to run his 40.
Still training for the pro day, the 38-yard dash at the pro day.
Perfect.
Right.
You do it on campus, on your own campus.
That's right, downhill.
Yeah.
Well, watching this team right now, guys, we're so interested by the different conversations about this Titans team because here day to day, I think the conversation locally has been this defense could surprise some people if they can stay healthy, right? And the depth in the secondary, a little bit of a concern, but we feel like, up front on the defensive line, Arden Key's a guy that's been impressive. Jeffrey Simmons obviously needs no introduction, and guys like Tier Tart and Jaden Peavy, these undrafted guys, have been solid. From y'all's perspective, getting to watch the scrimmage yesterday, just when you look at this team from the broad view, what impresses you the most and what maybe surprises you the most just seeing them in person about this Titans team?
I mean, I think defense is definitely the stronger unit at the moment, but the addition of DeAndre Hopkins is huge for that offense. Like, you can already see it in practice that he makes an absolute difference to everything they're doing. They're looking at him, first and foremost most of the time, and that bails them out of a lot of situations, where the defense does have the advantage and it's going to get pressure and it's going to shut the play down, and they just go, you know what, let's take a shot to Nuke. And most of the time, he's going to make it right, whether or not it was the correct decision. So the interesting thing, I think, is going to be when their defense comes up against a different offensive line, because that's the one area where you look and you say, that looks a little bit concerning right now. And it's difficult then to get a real gauge on what the defense is doing versus how much is just the offensive line being a problem.
What specifically was concerning to you that you guys have seen on that front for Tennessee for the offense?
I mean, it's really just how frequently they're getting beat, right? It's almost every single play. Yesterday, there was some kind of pressure. Now, Malik Willis wasn't helping that with his group, but I think generally on either side, the offensive line looked concerning.
Yeah, I think just on paper, the offensive line They paid a lot of money to Andre Dillard to come in and play left tackle. He's unproven. We really liked Peter Skoronski coming out. But again, he's a rookie. The expectations for a rookie offensive lineman, the differences between year 1 and year 3. I think Skoronski's going to be good, but he has to be good right away. And Aaron Brewer, maybe at center. So I just think the line has question marks. Petit Friere at right tackle, I thought he was okay last year. He's got to take a step forward. So that's the type of thing where I believe DeAndre Hopkins makes a huge impact on an offense. He did that in Arizona right when he got there. But you have to have the time to get the ball to him, so that's where it's got to all work together.
Did you like what you saw out of Ryan Tannehill? Because here it's always, there's a lot of Titans fans who I feel like don't appreciate what he brings to the table, but at the same time, I think a lot of people nationally would agree, like, he's really not like the top of the cream of the top, right?
We were told not to talk too much about yesterday's practice, I mean, we just want to follow the rules here. But look, I made a statement the other day about the Atlanta Falcons. They have a really fun group of playmakers, and I said, I don't know what you're getting from their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, but I said, if you dropped Ryan Tannehill on the Falcons, I'm really intrigued.
That's interesting.
So that's the story of the mid-tier quarterback. That's what Ryan Tannehill is. The people in town are like, looking elsewhere. There's other better quarterbacks somewhere, but you're also like, I don't want to be as bad as these other teams. I mean, that's Tannehill. You can win with him, but it's got to be what we saw a few years ago, controlled, play action heavy, have that, alpha playmaker on the outside. If you have that, Tannehill can be really productive.
Yeah, once he got going yesterday, he looked pretty good. I mean, he had a fairly rough start, I think, to the scrimmage, but then as the thing went on, he was the one that was negotiating the pressure. He was the one that was moving the ball in the 2-minute drill, that kind of stuff. So Tannehill is who he's always been, which is a good quarterback if the situation around him is good.
Mm-hmm.
The question I have for you guys is, right now, everybody in America has a team in their city think they can win the Super Bowl. Like, that's legitimately where everybody is. And the way you guys have broken down positions, teams, aside from the quarterback, because not everybody has a Patrick Mahomes, right? What is a Super Bowl team? How does it look?
I mean, I think the Eagles last year were a really good example because we didn't know what Jalen Hurts was last year at this time, but we had a feeling that the Eagles had made a lot of good moves. Their secondary is really good. They had few weaknesses across their roster. I view a Super Bowl team as a team that can win differently every single week.
Okay.
And that's what the Eagles did last year. So they would win with 200 yards on the ground one week. They'd win with A.J. Brown with 2 catches or A.J. Brown with 12 catches. They'd win with defense and pass rush, or they'd win with Jalen Hurts, tearing it up. So that's what I look for, the versatility and the ability to win multiple ways.
I think the thing is the line is moving now, right? Because there's so many of these good teams. The AFC in particular is just loaded. So you need a couple of things. You need to have a team across the board that's good enough to be playing in January, right? Like, that's step one. Let's make the playoffs because that's not a given anymore. And then number 2, you've got to have a quarterback that's good enough that not to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and all those kinds of things, but to be able to have a streak where he can play 3 games, at the top of his ability and look like one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, even if over 17, he's not that guy. So I think those are the 2 components you need for a Super Bowl run right now. It's a good enough roster and then the capacity to catch fire for a few games.
Have you also seen the emphasis as of late of going back to running the ball? Like, I know here it's always been a thing, but I think if you look across the league right now, even though the running back position is super devalued, the attention to your offensive lineman and running the ball, I feel like is taking a step up. How do you look at this duo of what Derrick Henry has been and what you've seen from Tajay Spears so far in preseason?
They look fantastic as a duo. I mean, I think Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing changed other than the fact that the situation around Derrick Henry fell apart, which is, one of the things that we've always been talking about, like why the position is not as valuable as a quarterback. Because if the offensive line falls apart, last year the Titans had the 32nd ranked offensive line in PFF rankings. If that happens, doesn't matter if it's Derrick Henry. He's not going to be able to carry the team the way a quarterback potentially can. But if you piece that back together in front of him, he's still going to look like Derrick Henry. And then Tajay Spears is a guy that, we loved in the pre-draft process, looked fantastic in everything up until draft time, and he looks like the same guy. I mean, some of the moves he's been pulling in preseason, incredible.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Spears. I mean, the run game that you're asking about around the league, I think it depends on the team because, again, when you have a Ryan Tannehill, Tannehill's never been the guy that you say, hey, go throw the ball 40, 50 times a week. You never want that from Tannehill. But if you say, look, you have to have 30 good plays this week and, 15 of them are going to be coming off a play action. Like you're tightening up the pressure. You're tightening up the third and longs that you need from your quarterback. So that's where you might want to rely on the run game a little bit more. And it makes sense with a Tannehill or with, the way the Titans are built.
PFF Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo, our guests. For this offensive line, then, what is their ceiling this season? Like for Peter Skoronski specifically, it almost feels like this offense could be at its best as an offensive line unit if they just moved him to left tackle. But is that best for him and his long-term future? Where do you guys kind of fall on that from their perspective? Like, how good does this offensive line need to be in order for the Titans to contend in the AFC South?
We always use the phrase on the PFF NFL podcast, creep back toward average.
Perfect.
Right? You just need, no offense, Ramon, but you guys aren't going to carry the team, right? Like if you have the best offensive line in the league, but you don't have a good enough quarterback, it doesn't matter. But you can't have an offensive line where every time it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, you're giving up pressure. You have to at least be in the middle of the pack. Skoronski specifically, I'm of the mind that stop measuring arm length and saying this guy has to be a guard. Just end it.
Yeah.
If he can play left tackle, he can play left tackle. And I think there's a chance that Peter Skoronski can play left tackle in the NFL. And I'm of the mind, I know you've only got so many reps and all that, I would give him a chance. Like, I'd give you a chance to fail at tackle first, and then I feel pretty good about you moving to guard. So I would always try a Peter Skoronski type who's really talented, technically sound, held his own as a left tackle in the Big Ten against good rushers. Like, give him a chance to play left tackle rather than just measuring his arms and say he can't do it.
On the opposite side, the defensive line and what they bring to the table, I think a lot of people saying this could be special because you've got Jeffrey Simmons, who is the dog, but Harold Landry's back. He's a year removed from that ACL. And you've got the addition of a guy like Arden Key, who I'm sure you guys have heard has brought a whole different type of energy and skill here to this team.
We've got homework for you, actually.
Ooh.
We need one of you guys to find out what Arden Key currently weighs.
Okay.
Because he was a guy who he's like the poster child for that long, undersized, thin edge rusher in college. And there's tons of those guys in college. And then they get to the NFL and really struggle because if you're long and don't weigh a lot, you just get destroyed by offensive tackles.
You know who was that body type but put on weight, though? Chandler Jones.
Yeah. So you can do it if you bulk up, but there's a ton of those guys. Like Shalik Calhoun was another one who had, the skills and just never had the bulk to be able to survive. And Arden Key kind of washed out initially and then looked like he added weight and size and has become a really consistent, situational pass rusher over the last few years. And now it's like, well, let's see if he can do it full time again. Like he's a different player now than he was when he couldn't get it done earlier in his career. Let's see if he can become the player that we thought he was going to be or that somebody thought he was going to be when he was drafted.
There's always a conversation of Big Jeff. How much of a game wrecker has he been as far as you guys' grading scale, man? Like when he's out on the field, what's the differences in his play versus not being on the field?
I was just running some numbers on some of this the other day, actually. When he gets double teamed, he's one of the best in the league, handling double teams in the run game and everything. So those are the things that kind of go unnoticed from a guy that's, especially when he's lined up as nose tackle. I didn't think that was going to be him coming out. I thought he was going to be disruptive, pass rusher, get up the field type of guy, but he holds the point and he's disruptive. And I think when I look at those defensive linemen, there's those single games sometimes where they just take over. That was Simmons against the Rams a couple years ago during the Rams Super Bowl year where he's unblockable, has 10 pressures. You don't necessarily get that every week, but some guys are able to do that. So he has the ability to take up multiple blockers, which is cliche but legit for Jeffrey Simmons. He has the ability to take over games, and then it opens up everything else for the deep defensive line that you're mentioning, Kayla. I love the depth there, and I think that is going to be the key to the Titans. When they were playing well 2 years ago, had the number one seed, it was those games where the D-line was setting the tone.
Sure.
So in that same conversation then, if Big Jeff is holding two, that's what a defensive lineman's job. If they're not seen, they're probably occupied by two. That's a great place to be at. Where do you find this linebacker core behind him then? Because we hadn't talked a lot about him, but I see the smirk on your face.
I don't know. It's an unknown. Don't ask me questions I don't know. We just haven't seen much from most of them.
Azeez Al-Shire is a guy from the 49ers.
He's been good.
He's been good. Okay.
He's the one guy, like he was underrated in that 49ers linebacking group because you have Fred Warner, you have Dre Greenlaw, but he was very good in San Francisco, familiar face with the front office and everything. Everything else beyond that is an unknown.
Does he need a really good co-star is what I'm asking him, because I know we're getting out of Aziz.
Oh, yeah.
Do you need a good co-star to ride with him? To be a good defense?
I think linebacker is almost similar to offensive line, where it doesn't have to be star-driven. If you're going to choose where your stars are in the defense, it's the D-line.
Sure.
You want to have a star corner. You want to have a playmaker in the back end. So linebackers have to be just good enough, so we'll see.
Yeah, and it's in this weird place right now in the NFL where you either have a star, you've either got a guy like Fred Warner, and there's only a couple of those guys in the NFL now, or it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like the big jump is if you can find a superstar, that changes everything. Like the things you can do with Fred Warner in your defense changes how your defense can operate. But if you don't have that guy, the difference between, a good linebacker, an average linebacker, a below average linebacker, it's not really changing that much to your defense because they're all getting wrecked. Like when you look at everything that's happening in today's NFL, it's all designed to stress linebackers and make them wrong. So it only changes when you find a guy that completely changes that dynamic.